Okay, welcome to Lecture 1 on DNA. DNA. Deoxyribonucleic acid. There's also RNA, which is ribonucleic acid, which we'll get to. And so, as we've kind of discussed a little bit before in these lectures, DNA is the heritable part of the information that makes us up what we are. It is our heritable genetic information, and we're going to talk about its structure a little bit in the next kind of 5-ish videos, something like that. So, let's talk about the overarching DNA stuff. I could have gotten up the structure of DNA and all of the nucleic acids, but I decided not to because no one's going to remember it. But let's talk about some of the things that we do need. So there's so there are nucleic acids, A, T, G, and C, and uracil for RNA, right? And there are some things that we need to remember about these guys. So, A and T bind together, and G and C bind together. Remember, like I said before, at the Gold Coast. Right? And at the Gold Coast tells us how they bind together. But there are other things to know. So if we look at the structure of these nucleic acid, A's and T's and G's and C's have a different number of hydrogen bonds that they connect to each other with. So we have our DNA double helix, and we have our nucleic acids, right? And it'll have a nitrogen-rich, it's called a nitrogenous base, but it has a nitrogen-rich pair of rings in here. And then our nitrogenous bases will have a different number of hydrogen bonds that allow them to interact. And I've pictured that here in purple, which maybe you can't really see. But those different pairs of hydrogen bonds differentiate between our A's and T's and our G's and C's. And the G's and C's have 3 hydrogen bonds, and the A's and T's have 2. So you can remember it as like these curly guys. The G, it kind of has 3 points. And C, it's kind of curly as well. They kind of have like a frontage where you could connect them. And they have 3 hydrogen bonds. Now that's important because of the way that DNA is made up. Your nucleic acids need to have the same number of hydrogen bonds in order to make a pair, in order to make a base pair. So G and A can't go together. G and A can't go together. Now, what is a pyrimidine and a... Now, what is a pyrimidine and a purine? So a pyrimidine has one ring in its nitrogenous base. And a purine has 2 rings in its nitrogenous base. And the way to remember which ones of these they are is A, G are purines, and the others are pyrimidines. And you can remember that as, AG, pure agriculture, something like that. Come up with your own mnemonic if you don't like mine, that's fine. Now, how do we remember that pyrimidines have 1 ring and purines have 2? Purine has 2 syllables. Purine has 2 syllables, and pyrimidine has an odd number of syllables, but if we just remember that purine has 2 syllables, we'll remember that it has 2 rings, and therefore we'll know which is which. So that's the very, very basic structure of our amino acids, and next we're going to go into how they combine.